One of the things that I've often heard when I have new master's students come into my courses is that they're looking forward to learning how to do catechesis because somebody has to catechize people. This verb often takes on an almost violent tone to it, right? So that there's a series of information that must be shoved into the head of the person who needs to receive religious instruction. The image I have is of a kind of violent transfer, right? From the teacher immediately to the student who receives the knowledge of faith. The reason that we're approaching this course by understanding catechesis as art rather than transference is because we want to understand catechesis not simply as education into faith, religious education, but an event that is itself a kind of art. For the catechist, as we'll come to see, is someone who doesn't have infinite control, who is not just engaging in technique, but in fact creating a space for the person who is seeking to encounter God to have that encounter. In this sense, catechesis is art. It's somewhat akin to the experience that I had when, after years of reading Shakespeare plays in high school, I finally found myself on the stage of the Globe Theater. At last, I saw Shakespeare not just as a text, but in performance before me, in almost the very kind of space that Shakespeare used when he himself was writing his plays. We, as catechists, are not necessarily taking up residence on the Globe Theater. We're not performing a play per se, where we have definite lines, but we are engaging in a drama, an art, in which the person we're working with is invited into the drama of salvation. Catechesis, in this sense, is an art, a way of inviting people in to an encounter. So, I want to introduce the goals of the course before we actually get down to the hard work at hand. Number one, we want you to understand key concepts in the field of catechesis, including evangelization, divine revelation, the tasks of catechesis, divine pedagogy, or a way of teaching, God's way of teaching, and the sources of catechesis. Just like when you have a script, you have to first learn to read the words to get to know what's actually there. It's important to have a grammar, a theory, a method for what we're doing when we're engaging in the ministry of catechesis. Number two, we want to learn from key moments in the history of catechesis, from Augustine to today. If you're an actor, one of the things you often want to do is study how other people have played a role. You want to understand the entirety of a tradition so that you actually get a sense of what place you have in that tradition. So too, we're going to look at the history of catechesis in 4 moments, both ancient and medieval, as well as modern, to get a sense of what we're doing as catechists, to find their principles by which we can move forward in our own ministry. Third, we want to consider the social context of catechesis in the United States today. The thing about catechesis is because it always involves particular people. You don't catechize in the abstract. You don't teach faith in the abstract. It's concrete human beings. We have to know something about the social and cultural context that we're doing this work. And so we're going to look at some of this social and cultural context, not just in a negative light, but understanding how the world that we abide in today can be a rich field for the sowing of the seeds of the gospel. Fourth, we want to develop a plan of how to engage in the art of catechesis across the life cycle. Catechesis, as we'll see, is not just a ministry for little kids. It's something that begins from infancy and ends upon our death. But that means we also need to understand something about human development from childhood to adulthood. Lastly, I'm going to invite you to appropriate a method for doing catechesis grounded in the work of Father Luigi Giussani. This method, which we'll explore in Unit 5, provides an occasion not just to teach within a classroom setting, but in every kind of area that catechesis is carried out. So, welcome to the course. I'm looking forward to us working together over the course of these next weeks. But before you move on, I want to invite you a question for further reflection. What are your personal goals for the course? How do you hope to achieve them over the next 6 weeks? I'm looking forward to working with you in the course and looking forward to exploring these themes together.